Your investment portfolio has been liquidated in full. The notification appeared on my phone during an important client meeting. I excused myself hastily, trying to maintain composure as I stepped into the hallway. This wasn't possible. Andrew and I had agreed never to touch our retirement savings without mutual consent. My fingers trembled as I called his number, only to be met with a businesslike voicemail greeting that suddenly sounded foreign to my ears. 3 hours and 17 unanswered calls later, I received a text message. "Rebecca, I need space to figure things out. Don't try to contact me for a while." After 12 years of marriage, this was how my husband chose to communicate that he was walking away from our life together. What I didn't realize then was that he had taken far more than just his belongings. My name is Rebecca Mitchell, 37 years old and CFO of a mid-sized marketing firm in Seattle. Andrew, 39, worked as an investment advisor at a prestigious financial institution. We lived in a modern loft downtown with our exceptionally gifted 11-year-old daughter, Zoe. We appeared to be the perfect professional couple: successful careers, intelligent child, financial stability. The facade couldn't have been more convincing. For the past year, Andrew had been pushing to diversify our investment strategy, insisting we consolidate our accounts under his management. "It makes sense for the financial expert in the family to handle this," he'd said with that charming smile that once made my heart flutter. I'd reluctantly agreed, transferring control of the $450,000 we diligently saved over our marriage. When I arrived home that evening, I found Zoe sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, her dark curls falling over her face as she hunched over her laptop. "Where's Dad?" she asked without looking up, fingers continuing to tap methodically on the keyboard. "He's working late," I replied, the lie bitter on my tongue. "What are you working on so intently?" "Just a coding project," she said, still not meeting my highs. "Dad's been acting weird lately. Is everything okay with you two?" Zoe had always been perceptive beyond her years, with an analytical mind that seemed to process information at lightning speed. At school, she was already taking advanced placement computer science, and at home, she spent hours teaching herself programming languages from online courses. "Let's talk about it over dinner," I said, buying myself time to figure out how to explain something I barely understood myself. Over microwave leftovers, I told Zoe a watered-down version of the truth, that her father needed some time away, but that everything would be fine. She listened silently, her expression inscrutable, then asked one cutting question. "Did he take the money from your investment accounts?" I nearly choked on my water. "How could you possibly know about that?" "Last week, I overheard him on the phone talking about liquidation timelines and offshore transfers," she explained matter-of-factly. "He said something about Panama being secure." My blood ran cold. Offshore accounts in Panama meant Andrew had been planning this for quite some time. While I'd been focused on my recent promotion, my husband had been systematically preparing to disappear with our life savings. That night, after Zoe went to bed, I searched Andrew's home office desperately looking for clues. His desktop computer was gone, but in a recycling bin, I found a crumpled receipt from a storage facility. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 5 years and drove to the address on the receipt. The facility manager confirmed that Andrew Mitchell had indeed rented a unit, but was unhelpful beyond that. As I sat in my car contemplating my next move, my phone rang, an unknown number. Rebecca Mitchell. The voice was professional, detached. Speaking. "This is Detective Sandra Reeves with Seattle PD. We've received some concerning information regarding your husband, Andrew Mitchell. Would you be available to come to the station today?" The detective's office was sparse and functional. She explained that Andrew's name had come up in an investigation into a sophisticated investment scheme targeting high-net-worth individuals. "We believe your husband may have been involved in diverting client funds," she said carefully. "Have you noticed anything unusual in his behavior recently?" I laughed hollowly. Besides him disappearing yesterday and emptying our joint investment accounts, nothing at all. By the time I returned home, my shock had morphed into a seething anger. I had built my career on financial acumen, yet I failed to see the deception happening under my own roof. I found Zoe, not in her room but sitting at the kitchen counter, her laptop open. "Mom, I think I found something," she said without preamble. "I've been running a program to track Dad's digital footprint." "You've been what?" I asked, momentarily distracted from my anger. I created a simple algorithm that aggregates public data and cross-references it with known patterns, she explained, as if it were the most natural thing for an 11-year-old to do. Dad's been sloppy with his digital security. He's using his secondary email to communicate with someone named Elise Parker. And they've been discussing property in Belize. Zoe, what you're doing might not be entirely legal, I cautioned, even as I leaned closer to the screen. Neither is what Dad did, she countered, a hardness in her voice I'd never heard before. Besides, I'm just connecting publicly available information. Over the next 2 days, Zoe and I barely slept as we pieced together Andrew's movements. We discovered he had been seeing this Elise woman for at least 8 months. More disturbingly, we found evidence that some of the funds he transferred weren't even ours, they belonged to his clients. On the 3rd day, I received a call from our bank. There had been a suspicious attempt to access our home equity line of credit remotely. The transaction had been flagged and frozen. That was him, I told Zoe after hanging up. He's trying to drain the house value now. Then he's getting desperate, she observed. The algorithm shows he's still in the country, Mom. The Belize property purchase hasn't gone through yet. That evening, my doorbell rang. Detective Reeves stood outside with a colleague. We've received information about your husband's whereabouts, she said. We believe he's planning to leave the country within 48 hours. We need your help. The plan was simple but risky. I would contact Andrew, tell him I'd discovered additional funds in a private account, and suggest meeting to discuss a quiet divorce settlement. Meanwhile, the police would be waiting to apprehend him. It's too dangerous, Zoe protested when I explained it to her. He's not thinking rationally right now. It's our best chance to recover what he stole, I insisted. Then let me help, she said firmly. I can track his phone location in real time once he responds to your message. The police won't need to expose you at all. After some debate, Detective Reeves agreed to Zoe's modification of the plan, impressed by her technical knowledge despite initial reservations about involving a child. I sent the message to Andrew that evening. I know what you've done. I also have access to funds you don't know about. If you want to avoid charges, meet me tomorrow to discuss terms. His response came within minutes. Millennium Hotel, room 842, 2 p.m., come alone. The following day, as I prepared to leave for the meeting, Zoe grabbed my hand. I set up a real-time tracker using the hotel's public Wi-Fi network. The moment he connects, we'll know exactly where he is. The police are already positioned in the hotel. How did you even? I began, then shook my head. Never mind. I don't think I want to know. Probably not, she agreed with a small smile that didn't reach her eyes. When I arrived at the hotel, Detective Reeves confirmed through my earpiece that Andrew had indeed checked in but had registered under a false name. According to Zoe's tracking, he was currently in the hotel lobby, not in room 842. He's setting up a trap, Reeves concluded. Stay in the car. 20 minutes later, I watched as the police escorted Andrew from the hotel in handcuffs. Behind him came a tall, elegant woman who I assumed was Elise Parker, also in restraints. At the station, Andrew refused to speak to me, but Detective Reeves provided the details. They had found documents in his hotel room outlining the entire scheme. Client funds diverted through a maze of accounts, plans for a new identity in Belize, even a fabricated backstory to explain his sudden wealth. What about our money? I asked. The funds he transferred from our accounts. Most of it has been frozen before it could leave the country, she explained. Financial Crimes is working on recovery, but it may take some time. And the clients he stole from. That's a separate investigation, she said grimly. He'll be facing multiple felony charges. That night, Zoe and I sat on our balcony overlooking the city lights, processing everything that had happened. How are you doing with all this? I asked her, suddenly aware of how much I'd leaned on my daughter's remarkable abilities without considering the emotional toll. I'm angry, she said simply. Not just that he was willing to abandon us, but that he thought he was smart enough to get away with it. She closed her laptop with a decisive click. I'm also kind of proud of what we did. We outsmarted him. We did. I agreed, putting my arm around her shoulders. But we still have a long road ahead. The weeks that followed brought a cascade of revelations. Andrew's scheme had affected dozens of clients, people who had trusted him with their life savings. The investigation uncovered evidence that Elise Parker, who turned out to be a former compliance officer at Andrew's firm, had been instrumental in helping him bypass security protocols. In a bizarre twist, Andrew attempted to blame me for the missing client funds, claiming I had orchestrated the entire operation using my position as CFO. The accusation might have gained traction if So hadn't meticulously documented the digital trail of his activities, creating a timeline that clearly exonerated me. 3 months after Andrew's arrest, I sat in a courtroom listening as he was sentenced to 12 years for fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering. Alice received 8 years for her role in the scheme. As part of the plea agreement, Andrew surrendered all assets, including the properties in Belize and the contents of the storage unit, which turned out to contain luxury items purchased with stolen funds. Recovery was a gradual process. The financial aspect was straightforward. Most of our savings were restored, and I worked out a payment plan for the remainder. The emotional healing was more complicated. Zoe began seeing a therapist specializing in children affected by parental betrayal, while I threw myself into rebuilding our lives. I took a sabbatical from my CFO position to establish a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating people about financial fraud protection. Zoe, channeling her technological talents constructively, developed a simple app to help people monitor suspicious activities in their accounts. 6 months after Andrew's sentencing, I received an unexpected call from Detective Reeves. "I thought you might want to know," she said. "Your ex-husband has been attempting to manipulate the system from prison, trying to access hidden accounts we hadn't identified." "Did he succeed?" I asked, my heart racing. "No," she replied, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "Your daughter's tracking algorithm was more thorough than our forensic accountants. All funds have been secured and will be returned to the victims." That evening, I shared the news with Zoe over dinner at her favorite restaurant. "So he's still trying to beat the system," she remarked, thoughtfully twirling pasta around her fork. "And still failing," I added. "Thanks to you." She shrugged, but I could see the quiet pride in her eyes. "I'm thinking about studying cybersecurity when I go to college," she said. "There's a summer program at the university for high school students. I know I'm a few years too young, but Professor Liu said they might make an exception based on my coding skills." "That sounds perfect for you," I told her, marveling at her resilience. Where I had seen betrayal as an ending, she had found in it a beginning, a pathway to her future. 1 year to the day after Andrew's disappearance, I stood in our redecorated loft, preparing to host a small gathering of friends who had supported us through the ordeal. The detective was coming, as were several colleagues who had never wavered in their belief in my innocence. As I arranged flowers in a vase, Zoe emerged from her room, laptop in hand as always. "I've been thinking," she said, leaning against the counter. "We should probably talk about college funds soon. I've been researching scholarships, but it wouldn't hurt to start saving specifically for education." I laughed, struck by the role reversal, my preteen daughter planning for her financial future with the caution of someone who had learned life's lessons the hard way. "You're right," I agreed. "But this time, we'll manage the accounts together. 2 pairs of eyes are better than 1. 3, actually," she corrected, tapping her laptop. "I've programmed an alert system that monitors for unusual patterns. It's not that I don't trust you," she added quickly. "It's just a good safeguard," I finished for her. I couldn't agree more. As our guests began to arrive, I reflected on how differently things might have turned out without Zoe's remarkable mind and determination. Andrew had underestimated both of us, assuming I would be too devastated to fight back and overlooking Zoe entirely as a potential threat to his plans. His greatest miscalculation wasn't in the execution of his scheme, but in his assessment of what he was leaving behind. Not a helpless wife and child, but a formidable team that would ultimately bring about his downfall. Sometimes betrayal becomes the catalyst for discovering strengths you never knew you possessed. In losing what I thought was a perfect marriage, I had gained something far more valuable: an unshakable bond with my daughter and the knowledge that together, we could overcome whatever challenges life presented next.